Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are actually live, so welcome to, thank you. Welcome to the Pembroke Chamber of Commerce Debate Forum. We're going to start with the Select Board. We'll have 5 questions. So to start, let's do the rules. Technical hitch. Excuse me, everybody. Gents, this isn't working. You know what? We don't need technology. So we are going to have 5 questions each. The Select Board will start. They'll have 2 minutes. Is it working? Yeah, it's like it should be good. It's the finger. Here's the rules for tonight. So the forum will be divided into 2 sections. We'll start with the Select Board. We'll finish with the school committee. Each candidate will have 2 minutes opening statement. Then we'll have 5 questions. Each question has come from the town. They're not our questions, they're your questions. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer those questions, and then they'll have 1 minute closing statement. We'll have a brief break, and then we'll move to the school committee. So, starting with the Select Board, we have Dan Trabucco, John Brown, and Michelle Bird. And we're going to start with Dan Trabucco. So Dan, we're going to give you 2 minutes, and as soon as you start speaking, the clock will start.
All right, very good. Thank you, everyone. Welcome for coming, and thank you to the Pembroke Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event. I am Dan Trabucco. I'm running for re-election for the Pembroke Select Board. I work as a Select Board member to serve the community, a lot like people who serve as youth sports coaches, scouting leaders, and that sort of thing. That's the way I contribute to the community. The work itself and contributing to the community is enjoyable to me. My vision of Pembroke's future is maintaining the nature of the suburban town that I moved into 24 years ago, while balancing that with the pressures of modernization. I've been working toward a better Pembroke for quite some time. During my 7 years in the planning board, I helped develop and write the previous master plan and worked to ensure zoning bylaws and subdivisions reflected the suburban character of Pembroke. During my 15 years as a select board member, I've worked to modernize the town by implementing curbside recycling, chairing the committee to create the capital fund so that infrastructure in roadways can be purchased and maintained in an orderly fashion, and help to literally change how the town government is run by chairing the committee which brought forth our town manager form of government. I like my job, and I'd like to continue performing these duties. I would ask you to consider casting your vote for me on May 18th. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. With time to spare. Moving on to John Brown. John, same with you. 2 minutes. The clock will start when you start speaking.
I'm Selectman John Brown, and I'm asking for your vote on May 18th for another term as your elected official here in the town of Pembroke. People have been asking me why I would want to continue doing this job. My answer to you and others are simple. The job isn't done yet, at least for me. As your member of the Select Board, I've had the privilege of serving as liaison on several committees. Right now, I'm serving as your liaison to the Council on Aging, Veterans Department, and even the Chamber of Commerce. I'm the chair of the Public Safety Building Committee and your representative for the Plymouth County Advisory Board. Lastly, the main thing I appreciate doing in this job is finding solutions for individuals in Pembroke. I look forward to answering questions here today, and I want to thank the people of Pembroke for your support over the years as your elected official. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Same for you, Michelle. 2 minutes as soon as you start speaking.
Hi, my name's Michelle Burt, and for those of you that don't know me, I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up here in Pembroke. I went to Pembroke High back when it was part of Silver Lake, and my husband and I bought my parents' house, the house I grew up in 1991. We raised our kids there, and my kids are 4th generation residents, and I've been around a long time. I have a long and proud history of community involvement that dates back to my childhood. I'm a former selectman, a former housing authority commissioner. I'm on the Pembroke Chamber of Commerce, and I've been on numerous boards and committees. I have both a legal and a business background. I'm a hardworking, independent, self-employed businesswoman. I stand up for what I believe in, I ask questions, and I demand answers. And if those are the qualities you're looking for in a selectman, then I request your vote on May 18th.
Very good. Thank you, Michelle. So on to question 1. And we've put the questions up here so everyone can read. These are the town's questions. This is precisely how it was written. So if there's any spelling errors up there, it's not me. So the first question, and Dan, if we can go to you first. What do you think is Pembroke's greatest challenge, and how would you address this?
Well, the greatest challenge is trying to keep up with maintaining our infrastructure in town, our roadways, our buildings. Those are the big ticket items, right? And one of the ways that the town has addressed this is to establish a capital fund. The capital fund funds the capital issues in the spring town meeting in a way that makes sense. Prior to the capital fund, if some of you older folks from town meeting remember, is whenever we addressed capital spending, we did it at the fall town meeting once free cash was certified. And what happened was, it was a free-for-all. And generally, the person with the loudest voice or the biggest personality got the money at town meeting. And generally, the DPW got pushed aside. So that is the biggest thing, and one of the changes that I have helped make in the town of Pembroke to move forward. It takes a little while to catch up, so you can now see some of the road work being caught up on. You also notice that with the town manager being implemented, he now funds the DPW roadways program to $1 million a year. We get Chapter 90 funding from the state, and then the town, through our budget, supplements that to maintain the roadways.
Thank you, Dan. Let's go to you, John. Would you like the question again?
No.
Okay.
I believe our greatest challenge, actually, beside the things that the chairman has alluded to, is communication still. It's unfortunate that basically we use social media quite a bit, and my colleagues use it quite a bit to make sure you guys understand what we're doing here in town. But since we don't really have a newspaper either for our older citizens, we're still trying to figure out how we can communicate properly with the whole citizenry, not just basically via social media.
Thank you, John. Michelle, would you like the question again, or?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I think if you asked any resident, they would tell you water and roads, water and roads. I mean, we had some residents in town that had brown water for a while. And I did speak with the town manager, and he said that they're addressing the issues. At town meeting, we're going to be spending $8 million on water infrastructure. They're putting up a new well up on Pleasant Street. And as far as the roads go, this is a true story. I was at an open house and someone told me they would not move to Pembroke because the roads are so terrible. And I was like, well, no, but it's a nice town. We have a lot of other things to offer. But we are getting ahead little by little. We used to only spend $100,000 on roads per year. Now we've upped it to $500,000, and then with the Chapter 90 money, we'll be looking at $1 million. I don't know if they still do it, but they used to do one north road and one road south of town. So little by little, we're making progress, but I think the residents' big challenges are roads and water.
Thank you, Michelle. So on to question 2. So all of you have been on the select board in Pembroke now, or previously. What do you consider a strong accomplishment of yours, and what was something you wish you had handled better? And John, if we can start with you, please.
Okay. Strong accomplishment for me is before COVID hit and actually we're kind of locked down, was going door to door to people's houses weekly to see what's going on. But for an accomplishment that we furthered on, actually has to be for what Dan Trabucco started, the Town Manager Act. When I was on that committee to make sure we had the right town manager for our town, it made me happy because we can actually go move forward on what we need, what we could do. We can look 20 years down the road with someone who has all this knowledge, knows Mass General law backwards and forwards, where we can actually get things done properly instead of being delayed because of too many committees or it's too much in the weeds for the minutia. So I do thank actually Chairman Dan Trabucco for starting the Town Manager Act and getting it through, and we picked the right person for our town manager.
Thank you, John. Michelle?
I would say, well, I have two projects. When I was a selectman, we worked on the solar farm project, which I still call it the old dump. You guys call it the recycling center, because that generates electricity for the town and saves us on the electric bill. And a small project that I did that I'm proud of is I got the wing of the bee fixed on the old library next door. Something I wish I had done better is probably communicate with the public more about what's going on in town. I think that is an area of concern. Myself, I wasn't sure if the fish fry started at 11 or 12, and I didn't know where to look online, so I just got in my car and I drove by the herring run to see what time it started. So I think just general overall communication, not just with town events, but also the community events, so that people know. Not just when are we voting, but when is the fish fry?
When is the forum? Thank you. Before I start with you, you okay? Does he need help?
No, Jim's
No,
just
he's
finding
okay.
the seat.
Good. Dan, would you like the question again, or?
No, good. Good thing and a bad thing.
Oops.
So, both John and Michelle have touched on projects that I worked on from the very beginning, so I'll choose something else. I'll say that I'm very proud of the community center. I've been working on it. I was in 2 committees for that. This community center that we have before us now, I worked on that for 3 years with a lot of people that worked very hard to vet the project and get the communication out there to the public so that they can make an informed decision when the vote came before them at town meeting and then on the ballot. And once that opens up, you'll see on June 15th, if you haven't walked through there yet or taken a tour, you're going to be amazed at how big it is, how nice it is inside. And for some of the people may not like the aesthetics of it, or may not like the landscaping out front. Not everything is for everyone, but holy cow, when you walk inside there, it's going to be, you're going to be so proud of this community. You're going to be so proud that that building was built. And for a negative thing, I've been a selectman for 15 years, so I've done a lot of negative things. And communication is one of the things that I pride myself on. And when I misinterpret something or get into an argument with someone because I'm not using logic and it's my fault, those are the things that I regret.
Thank you, Dan. Question 3. If a bus pulls up in front of the new community centre, questions from the town. If a bus pulls up in front of the community centre with 20 or 30 illegal immigrants who disembark as the bus pulls away, some provided with tents in tow, as we're seeing happen in Seattle, Washington, what will you do? What is a plan you might propose? Michelle.
Oh, figures I get the hard one first. I never thought of that before. I guess I'd call the National Guard and tell them to get them out of here.
Tell
You know what I would do? I'd bring them down to Howard Johnson's and I'd drop them off.
That's your plan.
Well, they can't be in the community center. We use that building.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have anywhere in town that we could house them. Yeah, I would have to move them to a different location. I mean, they're already set up in Rockland and Kingston to accommodate them, so that would be the best place for them.
Move them out of town.
Yes.
Okay. We didn't actually give you any time on that.
Oh, well.
You did very well.
You want me to keep talking?
Terrific. No, you. Okay, Dan, how about you?
Sure. So they're not allowed to live in the community center. It's a town-owned building, so they would not be allowed and they would not be welcome to live there. If you see the community center in Roxbury that was taken over, well, that was a state-owned building, and the governor has ultimate control over that. So that's why they were able to house illegal immigrants there. And all the hotels that you see that are filled up, the state, through the governor, has signed leases with every one of these hotels. Every one of these hotels are getting paid top dollar for every single room filled up, and I think the leases are to 2026. So for those smaller hotels that aren't filled all the time, they love it. And you're gonna find out that when they do vacate, the state's gonna pay them to renovate that entire hotel. When I say the state, I mean us as taxpayers. And that's what's going to happen.
Was there a plan in there, Dan? The question is, what would your plan be?
The plan would
To say no?
to say no.
Okay.
They have no right to access.
Okay, just trying to clarify. John?
Well, since this is a hypothetical question, unfortunately, I don't answer hypotheticals because this kind of question, unfortunately, is a political scare tactic, which is unfortunate. And then basically hearing this rumor around town for months on end that immigrants or illegals are going to be coming into the community center, it just puts a heightened alert on this town and its people. So, but if I had to choose to actually answer this of what kind of solution we would have, it would have to be that the town manager, the select board, and PEMA would have to get together and find a solution, period.
Okay. Thank you, John. Well, thank you all of you, actually. Very insightful. Question 4. What is your most positive takeaway from the master plan, and what is your most negative takeaway? Let's go with John.
The positive takeaway with this is seeing how the committee was working on from other committees beforehand. Like I said, as Dan alluded for the master plan he was doing, it's been wonderful of seeing all kinds of ideas coming through this town of basically what we should be doing, what we should be doing in open space, and roadways and schools and you name it. I mean, all the above plan. And I do appreciate my colleague who's out here in the audience for his time on this, on that committee to help us out. The negatives themselves, I don't see any negative because of, why would you find a negative for all these solutions trying to help out our town to look at the future?
Thank you. Michelle?
So something positive that was a takeaway from the master plan for me was just thinking about the whole big picture. For example, a friendly 40B project in Pembroke, like the one that's going up at the country club. You've got 172 units. They're over 55, so they don't have children draining the school system at $16,000 per student because they're over 55. They're going to plow and maintain their own roads. So we don't have a drain on the DPW, yet they're going to be on the tax roll. So we're going to get between $1.5 and $2 million just from that one friendly 40B project. And I think just thinking of things from a big picture and how they all coincide together. So it brings in revenue, it creates housing, and the people moving into the over 55, some of them will be leaving Pembroke and leaving the house that they're in now. So that creates more housing for the younger generation, houses to buy in families and neighborhoods and bigger homes that maybe are just too large for the people that are downsizing. So that would be a good takeaway. And one bad takeaway I thought was that we need to create more tourism. I don't know that anyone is coming to Pembroke for tourism. I feel like they cut and pasted that from a different plan.
They're coming to the Turner House.
Thanks, Fraser.
I've got a microphone. Come on. Okay. So, Dan, we haven't had your answer.
Right, so good thing for the master plan is that it codifies a lot of the talk that people have been having. The the back and forth of what the town should be, what it shouldn't be, and it codifies that into one document. And rather than go into specifics, let's just call the whole document being codified. All the stuff, different talk back and forth, put in one place is a positive. The negative is that municipal government is very slow. Municipal government is not run like a business. Municipal government is difficult to implement everything that'll be in that document. And if you ever read the previous master plan, some of those things that are in there still haven't been implemented. One of the things, the community center took, was it 20 years to finally be implemented. So it's not a negative on the committee that produced the document, it's a negative that municipal governments don't work like a regular business. And that's for a reason. And sometimes that's good, so that we don't move fast and choose the wrong thing and hurt 18,000 residents. And other times it's bad in that it's so slow, we don't move in time to really have an impact on the community in time.
Thank you. We're actually slightly ahead of time, so I'm going to throw all these questions at curveballs because none of you have seen them before. But I'm
Is this
going
a
to ask.
lightning round?
No,
Okay.
no, that's coming. So there's no lightning round, by the way. So, Michelle, you mentioned something that intrigues me. We're hearing in the select board meeting that there could be an increase in the school funds. Quite a significant increase in the money per student. If that money comes to fruition, does that change your view about having 55 and over not having an impact on the school?
Well, first of all, we won't have that money till the fall, so we can't really count on it for this budget.
You won't have the houses until the fall either.
Oh, we won't have the houses.
Well, fall of 26.
For a while.
Yeah.
But, no, what we get from the state doesn't change my opinion about over 55 housing in a friendly community like on the golf course. They're still leaving 200 acres there, and they're leaving the golf course. And he's creating affordable housing over by Shepherd's,
Yes,
in
he is.
addition into the 174,
But that's
175
55 and
units.
over also. There's no new for young families.
Right, but the people leaving their homes to go to the over 55 will put their houses on the market, and it's always a supply and demand factor. The reason why everyone gets top dollar right now is because there's no houses for sale. One house comes on, everyone pounces on it.
John and Dan, do you want to chime in, or should we move on?
Just rephrase the question because you're speaking
I
directly to
talk too
Michelle.
much.
True, but the question was, we keep hearing that there's going to be an increase in the funds per student, and it's significant if we get it. As Michelle says, it won't come through to September. Does that change the view that we need to have over 55 housing only because it's going to put a strain on the school if we're being funded?
Right, so the town of Pembroke has an active affordable housing committee, and they're doing yeoman's work, trying to bring in affordable housing for the town of Pembroke, not just over 55. So the town of Pembroke is actively trying, aside from the Chapter 40B, which is a main driver, but the other driver is the community needs. The community needs housing for the young folks that are just graduating high school and college, and also the older folks who want to downsize. And we want to do it on our own terms, not just state mandated Chapter 40B. So the town of Pembroke, through their affordable housing committee, has actually brought forth the very first town-accepted friendly 40B. Over where they park the school buses. That's where it's going to go. So the answer to your question is no, we do not need all over 55. Over 55 does help us to keep the levels of children going into the school down, but we need a diverse types of housing in town.
Thank you. John, any comment?
It doesn't change my mind about the over 55. The only thing I get concerned about, and we even spoke about this at another forum, is just what Dan alluded to. We need all the above. We need someone that is 20-some-odd years old and basically be able to afford housing. We need someone that basically maybe in their 70s, because in our community alone, we have like 73% of people over 70 years old that are active and have to drive. I have several 90-year-olds that are in this town. They're out there driving but they stay in their homes because they can't really retire because where are they going to go? And especially with the inflation of housing prices and all that, it's really concerning. But I want them to stay, of course, because I said they're my residents, and I take onus of that. But it's the all-above approach of basically having your first house, your starter home, your forever house, and maybe a 55 and up community where you can go and live out your life.
Thank you, John. So get us back on track. Question 5. Should you be elected, how would you address an issue raised by a constituent that you may not agree with or feel is important? Michelle.
So always decisions that I make will be based on what is the best overall decision for the town as a whole. Not a decision that I feel personally about or that my constituent feels personally about. Decisions will be based on what is the best thing for the town.
Terrific. Thank you. John.
Well, we've had that quite a bit. I mean, I had constituents coming up to me either in the supermarket or whatever it may be, and, I'll be there maybe for 20 minutes or so. But the biggest thing to do is just to listen. Sometimes people around in town just want to be heard. And they know we probably don't have a solution for their problem. And sometimes we're under Mass General Law where I have to follow the letter of the law to make sure things get done. But the biggest thing that we do as public officials in this town is just to listen to our constituents to make sure they know that we are hearing them, and if we can do something, hopefully find a solution for them.
Thank you, John. Dan?
Right. Understanding and knowing the issue and researching it from every angle. There are usually two sides or even more than two sides to every issue, especially if it's controversial. And getting to know the issue and understand it, and then take my personal experience and mix that in and do what's right for the town. Do the right things for the right reasons.
Very good. Thank you. So now we come to the closing statements. Michelle, we'll start with you.
Okay.
When you start speaking, the clock will start ticking.
Thank you for having me. People ask me all the time, why are you running for selectman? That's such a thankless job. But I don't think of it as a thankless job. I would be proud to be your selectman. I'm very passionate about the town, and I'm a worker and a difference maker. And I feel like it can bring good change to the town. Speaking of difference, what differentiates me from my opponents is I'm not affiliated with any political party. I'm not a Democrat, and I'm not a Republican. I'm an independent. Decisions that I make and my actions will be based on what is best for the town as a whole. And because I represent this entire community, I'm the best candidate for the job, and I request your vote on May 18th.
Very good. John.
I'd like to thank the Pembroke Chamber and the local scene for having us today to ask questions about our town of Pembroke. As you know, my name is John Brown. I've had the opportunity of being your member of the Select Board for 6 years, and I'm asking for your help to be reelected for another term. I know I've been elected by some to represent all. When reelected, I will continue to do so. When first elected to these positions, sometimes it's all about party affiliation, outside groups, etc. It happens. But when you get into these roles, it becomes more about the town and how we can be good stewards to the town we represent. I want to thank you for listening to me today, and I humbly ask for the people of Pembroke for your vote for re-election on May 18th. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And Dan, if you can close for the select boards.
Sure. Well, Fraser, first of all, thanks a lot to you and to the Chamber for hosting this. You've done a great job, so I appreciate that.
Your time hasn't started, so thank you.
Good job, Dan.
anything you want to say good about me, it's not
Perfect. So, I have experience, I have leadership that I present to the town as a member of the Select Board. My name is Dan Trabucco. I humbly ask for one of your votes. You have 2 seats available. I humbly ask for one of those votes. Thank you.
Short and sweet. Thank you very much, Dan. So that brings the Select Board section of tonight's forum to a close, and we will start preparing for the school committee. Thank you. Oh, and thank you. Smaller now. The school committee's up here.
Good thing at the end.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
We could- right.
You need extra space.
More space.
Yeah. I wonder. I always give my husband extra leg room. Just my pencil case.
I think people are in the bathroom. Yeah, we'll leave it 2 or 3 minutes, and then while people are using bathrooms, I think you the process that we undertook for this. So, as you probably all know, we had an open email line, and we invited the town residents to propose their questions. We had a committee that reviewed those questions, and the questions that you're seeing today are the output of that review process. So that's it, really. You can come and grab me after the event if you have any issues or complaints or questions. So, are the candidates ready?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so these mics are hot, meaning they're on all the time, so they're picking up everything. But when you're speaking, if you could be more direct into the microphone. So Lauren and Katrina, I think you're probably a bit too far away. Patrick's got it right. Everybody on this side, correct. Perfect marks. It won't get you elected, but we'll hear you. Okay, so we're going to do the same. There's obviously a lot more people here. We're going to start with the candidate's opening statement, and then we'll have 5 questions. Not everybody will answer. We've been very fair about this. Not everybody's going to get to answer a question, but everybody's going to have at least 4.5 questions. I don't know who's getting the half. Could be you, Michael. So, opening statements. We will start with our incumbent and school chair, Sue Bollinger. 2 minutes on the clock. It will start ticking down when you start speaking.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much to the Chamber of Commerce and PAC TV for coordinating this forum for people to learn about the school committee candidates and the select board. I'm grateful to be part of it. My name is Susan Bollinger, and I've been serving on the school committee for the last 3 years. A little bit about me. My husband and I have 7 children together. They range in age from 38 to 16. 4 of my children have gone through Pembroke Public Schools, and 3 of them graduated. 1 still has a couple more years left to go. One of my sons is now actually a high school physics teacher. I grew up in Pembroke, and I love this town, and I love our schools. And I originally ran on the school committee because I wanted to make sure that we were able to continue to deliver a strong foundation to the children in the community. I believe in a well-rounded education, and I wanted to make sure that we continue to offer the programming that supported that ideal. Some accomplishments that highlight my priorities over the last 3 years include implementation of the Innovative Pathways program, reestablishment of the Joint Select Board School Committee Budget Subcommittee. We created a vocational exploratory committee to seek potential partnership with South Shore Technical. We reorganized the existing policy manual and advanced policies that recognize student achievements. I believe that all children, regardless of their backgrounds, cultures, or abilities, deserve to have an education. Children deserve to feel safe in their classrooms and deserve to learn and express ideas without fear of judgment or reprisal. This ideal should not be limited to just marginalized communities. Every child deserves to feel heard and feel safe. I will always advocate for every child, and I believe we need to teach empathy and understanding for all cultures and backgrounds, and we need to be respectful of the various belief systems within our community. I'd like to continue the work, and I'm passionate about seeing all of our kids succeed, and I humbly ask for your vote.
Thank you, Sue. Moving on to Michael Quinn.
Yes, thank you for having me here today, Chamber. I really appreciate this, and thank you for organizing this as well, local scene. I'm excited to be here today. My name is Michael Quinn. I've been serving on the school committee now for a little over a year, since January of 2023. This July, my wife and I will be celebrating our 10-year anniversary living in Pembroke. We moved here July 31st, 2014. We weren't married when we moved here. We bought our first house here. We got engaged, we got married, we started a family. So Pembroke is very important to us. We love living here. This is where we decided to settle down. We actually looked to move here, and we love it here. And with 2 young children, one of whom is just entering the school system this year, I have a lot of skin in the game to make sure that the Pembroke school system remains healthy and vibrant, and make sure that we're providing the highest quality education that we possibly can. In the coming years, we are going to be facing some serious challenges, especially when it comes to budgetary issues, long-range planning as our buildings are aging. That's something we really need to start thinking about replacing or renovating, and the lack of VOTEC education or lack of VOTEC options for our children. These, to me, are 3 of the biggest issues that we're facing right now in the school system, and I believe I can be part of the solution. While I've been on the school committee, I've shown my commitment. I have the necessary financial expertise to work with budgets and to stretch dollars and to spend as efficiently as possible. I am not, as someone who is a parent of children, all I want to do is make sure that I make the right vote every time for the kids. And I hope you'll vote for me on May 18th.
Thank you, Mike. Patrick.
Thank you, Fraser, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for doing this to educate voters. So when I asked to be appointed at the end of last summer, I said there was no way I was going to run for the 1-year term of this seat. And I was committed to doing that 2 weeks before, about 2 weeks before the January discussions that we had. And I'm concerned. I've spent 20 years defending public education in Pembroke. I've spent 20 years, in the last 20 years, making sure that kids are represented around that table. We have a classroom-first philosophy that Mike Tropiano, Ginny Wandell, at the time Paul Bosworth, Sue Scroggins, then David Boyle, and Jim Agnew put together. We do things first for the classroom and foremost for the classroom. And it's deteriorated. We have an assault on the schools right now. We have an assault on the school committee right now. There is a small, very vocal, I would call them extremist group in this town that is sowing division. They're sowing distrust in this government. They're sowing distrust to town employees. They're creating chaos and conspiracy theories. 2 of the candidates around this table are endorsed by that group. I ran to say enough. I ran to say this is not good enough. The kids deserve a voice. The kids deserve a wall of protection. We have gotten to the point where we have brought national political issues into Pembroke unnecessarily. We are bringing that to the detriment of our school system. We are bringing it to the detriment of our kids, and we are propping up candidates to make absolutely certain that those voices, the wrong voices, are put around the table to push that agenda. I'm running to stop that.
Okay, Patrick, thank you. We've done with the incumbents, now the candidates. Katrina, we'll go with you, please. Katrina Delaney.
Awesome. Good evening. I am Katrina Delaney. I'm from Pembroke. I also wanted to say Happy Teacher Appreciation Week for all the educators out there. I am an educator and administrator. I have been for the past almost 10 years. I left teaching because I had my beautiful daughter, and she had a lot of medical challenges, and it just wasn't something that was conducive to my schedule anymore. I really needed to be home for her and be able to take her to all of her therapies. And so now I'm a small business owner, a successful small business owner, and I moved back to my hometown, to a place that I knew and loved, because I trusted this town to help raise my child alongside me, be part of the village. I am the only candidate, and if elected, I'm the only candidate with educator and administrator experience if elected. The first Pembroke School Committee who has that teacher and administrator experience. And that's something that I think has been sorely lacking from our school committee, and is part of the reason we're in having the experiences that we are now. It feels like the fate of our schools is in the balance. The fate of our children is in the balance. And that shouldn't be the way. When the potential policy change was brought forth in January, albeit with very little data, I knew the time to step up had come. Let me repeat. I moved home because I felt my hometown was going to be a better place to raise my daughter. This was called into question momentarily in January. Over the past several months, I've knocked on over 500 doors in Pembroke. I've met so many amazing individuals, listened and learned. I will bring that same energy of hard work when elected to the school committee. This town has given me so much, and I'm ready to bring my experience to our town and our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. Paige.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Paige Graziano. I'm a local veterinarian here. I know many of your families from my 23 years of living and serving in this community in many different capacities. I am a mother of 4. My reasons for running for school committee have been challenged, and I'm just going to give you some background on myself, because those are false. Some may be confused about why a parent who chose to homeschool in the past would want to be on our school committee. So let me clarify. My family has always partnered with our schools, because I believe education is essential and it is my passion. Whether having my kids participate in extracurriculars or as enrolled students, I made decisions regarding each of my children's education based on their own unique needs and talents, and that meant that for some, at some times, they were in the public school. But for others, it meant something different. My children have attended Hobbamock, PCMS, and Pembroke High, and I currently have 2 at the high school. We are not strangers to our public schools. While homeschooling, I taught from kindergarten to graduation, evaluating and choosing curriculum, and acting as my children's primary teacher. I am an educator. In our home, schooling was not what you may have had to deal with during COVID. We focused on direct experiences through travel, projects, classes, cooperatives, and a reading list of over 30 to 40 classic books per child per year. This was rigorous education. While homeschooling, I was co-chair of our large cooperative, teaching primarily science classes of up to 20 students of various ages with different learning abilities. I know what it takes to prep a class, to teach effectively, to grade the work, and to be accountable to parents. As a veterinarian, I've managed both staff and budgets. Veterinarians regularly work with state and federal agencies regarding prescribing and hiring laws, Practice Act regulations, food animal inspection and transport, and rabies prophylaxis as one example. Navigating the legal and managerial aspects of this position are not beyond my experience nor my expertise. I have been considering this run for years.
I'm sorry. Are you wrapping
For
up?
years. Over 23 years here, Pembroke has become an extension of my family. That is why I am running.
Okay. Thank you so much, Paige. We're not going to cut mics, but I do ask that you keep to the time, please. And the other thing is, I know you're passionate, Paige, but when you hit,
I'm sorry. I was
it's
shocked.
fine. But that's been broadcast.
Yes.
Okay. So moving on. Lauren.
That's a lot to follow.
You know what?
I'm kidding. I'm going.
When you start speaking, the timer will start.
Okay. So just keep giving you compliments and it won't start?
Please,
Okay.
yeah.
Hi, I'm Lauren Vitello. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce for tonight. I think it's a great opportunity for those we haven't had a chance to speak to, for us to be able to get to more people. And I really appreciate everyone who's here tonight. It's a beautiful day out there today, and I know it's tough, to give up one of those days when it rains all the time lately. So I really appreciate everyone being here. I'm a mom first. I'm a mom of 2 elementary students. I have a daughter that is in 3rd grade. And then I have a son who recently started, he's 12 years old, recently started at South Shore Education Collaborative. So it's like a behavioral therapeutic day school, outplaced. I'm a lifelong resident of the South Shore. I'm proud to be from Pembroke. We moved here to have our forever home. I stepped up to run for school committee because I have a very much dedication to our kids. I've worked with them through multiple different multiple different programs, from the Girls Troop 143 that we recently started. I've been involved with PAC 105. My daughter's in it. My son crossed over from PAC 105. I've worked with Troop 105 as well. I coach softball, soccer. I'm on the special education parent advisory council as well, as the PR rep for them. So as you can see, I've been involved with a lot of different things in town, and I really am dedicated to these kids. I love to see them grow and thrive through all the different experiences they have. I also have over 2 decades of operational experience in leadership at a health insurance company. No, I did not start there when I was not 10, I swear. But I have a lot of experience coming in from a collaboration, budget, making fiscal appropriate decisions. So please, I hope you vote for Lauren Vitello. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you all the candidates for your opening statements. So let's move to the first question. And the first question is, in your view, what is the most significant challenge facing our school system, and what would be your approach to solving it? Patrick.
So I think there's quite a few, actually. I'll choose the top 2 because I think they're the most important. Post-COVID, we have significant social emotional issues, anxiety issues, behavioral health issues within our school community. Teachers are no longer just teachers, right? They're required to do a lot more in the course of the day. Schools now regularly have social workers and behavioral health professionals that are necessary. And that actually bridges to the second issue. It's funding. We have an incredibly broken funding model in the Commonwealth. The funding model for suburban schools is directly disadvantaged, and it basically means that we are always going to cut first, support things, and support programming later. So I think the 2 major issues are ultimately funding and the ever-changing needs of the student body. I think the approach to solving it, the funding issue on a global scale, is going to be really difficult. We have to change our representative base, right? We have to change the way we look at things and do things on Beacon Hill, and that's something a school committee will not do. But getting creative around financing is something a school committee can do. Having been a finance professional for 38 years and balancing 14 school budgets in the past, I'm quite adept at doing that, and I've been very creative to make sure we do that. We spent the 9th least per pupil several years ago and had one of the best AP offerings, one of the best education systems, and one of the best sports offerings on the South Shore. I think being creative and being collaborative and keeping the nonsense out of our schools is the best thing we can do to solve our problems.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Sue.
Sure. I would say a couple of things. Budget obviously is really important. We know that the budget's going to be a little bit more challenging next year. It was challenging this year as well. We fortunately had created I had talked with the select board early last year because it became apparent that there was a communication gap between departments, and it was very evident that the town manager wasn't really aware of what our numbers should be, how much we would get for funding and whatnot. So I had asked to do a joint budget subcommittee meeting with the select board for this year. And so we started real early in the year, and, we started in October instead of January when we normally start as a school committee. And, the unintended consequence was that we were able to get a leg up on the budget constraints that we ended up having, because we didn't know we were going to be in such a difficult situation. And because of that, working with the select board, we were able to solve for a $1.2 million deficit with the school budget, as well as any kind of budget issues with the town. We didn't have to lay anybody off, and other towns were looking at overrides, and we didn't have to do that because we started so early. So the budget, really, we're going to have to solve for it again next year. It's going to be another issue, so, and I'm ready to get to work with that, so.
Terrific. Don't forget the passion. Thank you. Michael.
Yeah, our biggest challenge going forward, again, it's the budget. Sorry, I had to do that. It really is. I mean, the budget drives everything that we can do for the students, everything. We need to have a healthy budget to maintain a healthy school system. This year, we start out by doing our maintenance of effort budget, which is basically doing next year, doing what we're doing this year at next year's dollars. So when you take into account inflation, our MOE, maintenance of effort, was $39.6 million. Our budget ended up being $1 million less than that. So taking into account inflation, we basically had $1 million budget reduction, if you look at it that way. And that's going to continue going forward. We need to be able to spend these dollars, stretch each dollar that we possibly can. What we do right now in a lot of cases, when it comes to special ed, we have a special ed pre-buy. So we get discounts on special ed tuition. That saves us a decent amount of money going forward. We also have a lot of teachers and a lot of administrators that wear more than one hat, and they save us a lot of money by doing that. One is our superintendent. She's a superintendent / business manager. Most towns have two of those. We have just one person doing both. We're stretching dollars by doing stuff like that, having people take on extra roles. We're saving money that way, and we're protecting the classroom, as Patrick has said in the past, by maintaining lower class numbers. So we need to continue to do that going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Katrina.
Yeah, great. So I think the biggest challenge is similar to what others have said in terms of funding, and it's not going to change anytime soon. That's sticking around, that budget challenge. I think ultimately we need to think about creative ways to bring new growth and revenue into our town so that we are better positioned to fund our schools. And so that will take collaboration with our town offices, the select board, and more communication and finding different avenues for increasing that growth so that we don't keep running into the same issues. Because sure, we can be creative with every coming year, but what are we doing in the long term? How are we planning for the future beyond just next year, beyond even 5 years from now, but thinking longer term, so that we don't have to keep considering making cuts and we can find new ways to bring that money in, even if a solution isn't coming from the state.
Thank you, Katrina. Lauren.
I get to go.
Yes, you do.
Fantastic. So, great question. I think it's obvious that budget is definitely one of those big things that has been challenging for education. Since COVID, the costs and services that we have are cost so much more. Inflation. I mean, we're really hiring a lot of great teachers and supports, but as well as the length of our salaries for the teachers that have been here for a long time, which is a great thing because it means they want to stay. So budget's definitely a big thing, as you've heard. I would say that to add to some of those points from a budget perspective, it's really important that we're working together. So I think one of our big challenges that I've seen on school committee is kind of a divide, a divisiveness going on. I think it's really important if we're going to work towards a balanced budget, improved programs, other options, that we're working together. So I do think for me coming in, I really want to work on pulling everyone together. I really want to be able to collaborate together. I want to be able to, be strategic. I want to see that we're making decisions that are putting our kids first. So on top of the budget, I do think it's important that we're also bringing families in to the town to be able to have more budget for our schools, which I think VOTEC would be one of those things that would drive people to come here as well.
Okay, I did say that not every candidate was going to answer every question. However, I really think this is a very important question. So, Paige, would you like to have a shot at this one?
Sure.
Thank you.
I won't bang the table.
Come on. Thank you.
I became involved in this race because I think the biggest challenge we have right now is the issue with VOTEC education. The rising cost of college is pricing students out of that option. There is a huge need for vocational people doing those jobs. So it is absolutely crucial that we make that accessible to our students. And although I think the most important thing is getting access to a school where they can have certifications, also making access to more hands-on type of programs within the school itself gives kids an idea of what they can do potentially outside of school. I made a post about how sewing really ended up making me a much better veterinary surgeon. And who would have known, But that class really influenced me in high school. So to be able to have our kids, even in the regular high school, have access to some of those more hands-on classes is why I got involved with this. I want to develop partnerships and externships and more access to that type of education for our students. And then we work on the other things from there, and that grows from there. How do we finance it? How do we house it, et cetera? That can grow out of that classroom-first mentality, student-first mentality.
Very good. Passion without banging tables. Terrific.
Success.
Okay, so question 2. A lot of people wonder why, with enrollment on a downward trend, how come the school's budget is increasing? Can you explain the reason for this and how you came to that conclusion? I'm going to start with you, Sue, please.
Sure. Well, so first of all, we have contracts with teachers, and we usually negotiate them, like 4 years at a time, and so we have to give teachers their raises, their contractual raises. So that's the first thing. But what people should understand as well is that we do enrollment-driven reductions on a yearly basis, and in fact, when we met in our joint subcommittee, we explained and when we had our joint meeting with the entire select board and advisory, we explained what those enrollment reductions have been over the last 10 years. So it does seem like we're increasing, and we are because, over time, everything does increase, right? But we are taking significant reductions every year. For example, this year, there are 4 enrollment-driven reductions for payroll. So we do take that opportunity to reduce. And if you look at the budget presentations on the website from this year, you'll see how much has been taken over the last 10 years. So that answers the question.
Thank you. Katrina, do you need the question again, or?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Great. So I think there are several reasons why enrollment is down. That's something that is, not specific to Pembroke. It's down across the state. But why is the budget increasing? So one of these things are points that I heard while attending school committee meetings from February, January till now. So the increase in technology use. Our students have, for the most part, especially at the high school, a one-to-one model using our computers, and those have to be replaced every so often. And that was something that prior to COVID, we did not have as many computers, and now that we have that, we've realized how great it is to have that access to technology for our students. And so in order to maintain that, that is a piece, as well as increasing Wi-Fi for, having more devices on the networks and being able to make sure that our Wi-Fi is working properly for not only our students but our teachers to be able to carry out the tasks that they need, to have the printers working, to be able to get the materials you need ready to go. The other piece is changing student needs. There are a lot of increased mental health needs since COVID, and that's taking the form of various mental health aspects. You know, one of the pieces that I heard at the school committee meetings was around the number of students who may need outpatient mental health services. And so thinking about the ways that we provide those supports for students, it requires new supports that cost different amounts of money. So the changing student need.
Thank you, Katrina. Paige.
I'll start by saying that inflation is certainly something we've all become very aware of. And so, as Mike mentioned, we have this maintenance of effort budget that every year the cost to continue to do the same thing just rises. And so that's one of the issues we have. We also have an issue that, although Sue mentioned it, we make reductions based on student enrollment, our building size doesn't shrink, and it costs more to heat that building, et cetera. It doesn't necessarily make sense to remove a building from the process until we get to a certain low level where we don't actually need that building, and we're not there. So we have these things that we need to maintain, teacher salaries, et cetera. The question really becomes, how do we balance these things moving forward? One of the things that we really need to do is act as advocates at the state level to help with funding for things like special education. That can be a huge and very variable draw from one year to the next. Our town has done some things to help buffer that with some savings programs that they've used, a buyback program, but that could be used up quite quickly depending on how students move into our system or move out of our system. So it's a multifaceted thing that we need to take into consideration.
Very good. Thank you, Paige. And we'll finish with you, Patrick.
Sure. So enrollment is probably one of the key drivers that we hear about a lot. I worry a little bit about some of the comments that I just heard because it tells me that there's really a lack of understanding of the issue. Enrollment is being driven because population in Massachusetts is reducing, and this is an issue that we see across all 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth. If you look at our class sizes, they have not shifted and changed, which means that we've appropriately adjusted staffing, teacher staffing, in order to accommodate the enrollment reductions. We took $1.3 million of personnel reductions over the past several years in order to react to the declining student population. The other issue, and we are taking 3 reductions again this year, albeit they will be due to retirements and what have you. I think the reason why you have an ultimate increment in cost, though, is it's multi-factored. So you can't close a building. We took a $5.5 million mass school program funding to do the roofs on each one of the schools, with the exception of Bryanville, 10 years ago. If you close a school, you have to pay it back. We have to understand stuff like that. The enrollment and the costs are being driven, yes, by inflation, yes, by student need, but at the end of the day, they're being driven by the incremental needs of the student body, while at the same time being driven by economic factors that are putting pressures outside of the school and the school committee. But enrollment's down across the Commonwealth, and this has been paid for and reacted to quite well from an economic perspective by the school committee and by the administration.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. So, question 3. Have you read the new comprehensive health and physical educational framework and consider yourself reasonably aware of its assumptions and assertions? Please identify your most positive takeaway and your most negative. Michael.
I wanted to answer the other question.
I know, same here, same here.
No, I've
You banged the table.
This is the last time I bang on the table, I promise. Yes, I have read through this. I would say the positive takeaways I would take from it is that it's updating a lot of stuff. We haven't updated our sexual education, I believe, since the 90s. So it's a good idea to update some of that stuff. Some of the negative takeaways I've seen on this is I'm not a fan of the comprehensive sex ed that starts in kindergarten or preschool. I think that's too early. I don't believe that some of the stuff that I have read for, I'd say, preschool through 5th grade made me feel very uncomfortable with 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds learning that. And I don't think that's appropriate for elementary schools. I don't think sex ed should begin in preschool.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Katrina?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I have. I think some of the pieces that have been updated are due to just the passing of time. The last time it was updated was 1999, and so it needed to change because times have changed. One piece is having information around how to support students with social media and problem solving around that. Also, in addition of bullying, making sure that we address bullying through that framework. The other piece is medical accuracy, so making sure that what we are teaching our students is accurate. In terms of, what maybe isn't working, I think ultimately our school, every school has the choice to implement as they see fit and the needs of their community. So there still is choice. There's an opt-out if you don't want your child to attend a sex ed class, those types of things. So there's choice. There's also parent and community feedback that was part of the creation of this framework. So there were opportunities for feedback. I do think that the framework itself is developmentally appropriate because it takes into consideration where the children are at and make sure that the content is aligned to their developmental needs. And if parents or families feel differently about that, they have the choice to opt out. But I think ultimately it needed to be updated.
Thank you. I'm going to switch this up a little bit, so we'll bounce
Fraser,
back.
could I add really quickly? I would say that the administration actually agreed with me on that point because we discussed this a couple months ago, and they actually only made very minor changes to it based on this framework, so.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. This is a forum, not a debate, but thank
Sorry,
you.
I forgot to throw that in there, and you can strike that from the record, I guess, if you have to.
Can you all strike that from the record?
Struck in.
Paige, would you like the question again, or you?
No, I've got the question.
Okay, good.
I have read them. I tend to agree with Mike on this, that the positive, I would say, is that they are very complete. I was kind of floored by how complete they were. But I would disagree that as Mike said, I think some of them are a little bit too forward for our community. Now, that being said, I know that we have some flexibility. My kids have gone through the sex ed program and health ed program in our schools, and I've reviewed that material as well, and I've been very comfortable for the most part with what's been offered. So I think our community has been very receptive to community input, and we do give students and parents the ability to review the material before it's presented to students, and the ability to opt out when they feel it's appropriate. So my only concern with the framework as it stands is I would want to make sure that we continue to have the same input and to maintain the same types of availability for parents, et cetera, to have access to that prior to their students seeing it, because it is pretty detailed, and I want to make sure that no student has access to information that is going to overwhelm them, and it's going to be developmentally appropriate for them, because not all students are the same. So.
Thank you. Lauren.
Thank you. So this is a tough one because I think everyone's kind of spoken. I think a lot of us are on the same page. But it is really important, obviously, that our kids are being educated in this way, right? So kids, especially with COVID, and I know we keep going back to that, but it was such a large impact on our kids. And so it's important that they're getting educated, that they are being aware, that they are knowing of what's, some of it's detailed, but also knowing how to handle situations, how to be responsible, how to make good choices, things like that, is really important. And so those are a lot of the positives from it. They get a lot of like social, like there's a lot of missing social pieces for kids, and so I do think that they get a lot of that as well from this. Also being able to relate to each other. But I will say from a negative, and I watched the video that they give to sixth grade too, and it is a little much, and I feel like, this is maybe just my age, I guess, but I feel like kids grow up way too fast. And I'm sure everyone in this room probably can agree, except the younger kids. I think they grow up way too fast. I do think some of it is way too soon. I think we need to let kids be kids to a point. Again, important for them to be aware, but it starts way too early at the same time.
Lauren. We're going to move on to question 4. So, what is your understanding of Pembroke's VOTEC issue, and do you support joining in membership to South Shore Tech in Hanover to secure VOTEC access back to Pembroke students? Patrick.
So VOTEC is incredibly important. We need VOTEC education for kids today. It's part of giving all students a free and fair public education within the Commonwealth. So on the surface, I completely support it. I've supported it for 20 years, but behind the table. The issue and whether South Shore VOTEC is the right answer, I don't know. And I only don't know because, candidly, I don't know what the ultimate cost is going to be. I think they've got tremendous offerings. I think they have tremendous ability to educate in a vocational program our students. I think what the Commonwealth has done with vocational education and the restriction that it's put on kids is devastating. But at the end of the day, nobody around this table should be able to say yes or no to that until they know what the cost is, what the structure, how many kids, when it's going to start, what the ongoing financial component that's going to have to be sold to the town is. And then if we decide that that is the right thing, we've got to develop a plan, right? It will require a substantial override and a substantial operational override for this town. So those are the considerations that I think have to be thought through. On the surface, I'm 100% for it. I think it's incredibly important.
Thank you, Patrick. Sue.
Yeah, so I believe also that Pembroke, we really need to be involved in a VOTEC program. It's so important. Not everybody learns the same way, and learning a trade or working with your hands is such an important piece of education for a lot of kids, and I think that they learn better if they're able to work with their hands. I really think that we had a missed opportunity a few years back when we were able to join South Shore Technical. Unfortunately, we didn't know what the state was going to do, but it was a missed opportunity because we could have joined at a much lower rate than is going to be presented to us now. But I think that we have to do everything possible to gather the information, find out the cost, and present those costs hopefully to the town. I would like to see us as a committee, put it before the town people to decide whether or not we should do the override. But if at all possible, and if it was up to me, I would have it go through.
Thank you, Sue. Michael?
Yes, I'm on the exploratory committee for VOTEC, and this has been my #1 cause since I joined the school committee. First of all, if we had joined a couple of years ago, we would still be talking about this renovation at South Shore VOTEC and the amount of money that we'd be spending on it. We would just be part of the district while doing it. So we wouldn't have gotten around paying for or requesting the override to join. I have 2 reasons for supporting VOTEC. There's the economic reason that tradespeople, there's a massive shortage in skilled workers like that. Our kids are missing out on big opportunities. Incomes have gone up huge for people who are involved in the trades. You find there's a shortage everywhere. You can't get anyone in anymore. Secondly, it's the emotional reason. If I had a kid who needed that education, and just because of where we chose to live 10 years ago or however long ago, I couldn't help provide that education for my child, I would be going out of my mind. I would be just absolutely going ballistic. And I think that we need to, it's actually an obligation that we have as a town to provide VOTEC education for our children. There's definitely going to be a discussion about this. I'm comfortable with the ballpark figure I've heard, asking the town for. And secondly, if we do vote, we do have to convince the rest of the school committee to vote for this. Because if we do vote as a school committee to bring this to town meeting, that means that we endorse it. We can't just say, I want to have the town decide. No, once we vote to bring it to town meeting, that means we endorse it, we own it, we have to educate the town on it. So if you believe in VOTEC, it's important to get a VOTEC person on school committee.
Thank you, Michael. I am cutting people short because I want everyone to have an opportunity. I know I said I was going to have, but everyone's spoken so far, apart from you on the budget.
Thank you, and I almost ran out of breath on that too.
Katrina.
Sure. So I think similar to what other folks have said, we need to think about the initial cost and the continued cost of VOTEC education. And I think we need to also explore all options. Obviously, one option is signing on to South Shore VOTEC. And since we don't know what that will cost at this time, I can't make that decision. And ultimately, it's going to be one that we really need to use data and research to fully understand the implications, not only for our families, but also for residents who don't have kids in the school system and what that means. I will say, 44% of jobs in Massachusetts actually require post-high school skills training, but less than a 4-year degree. So it's obviously an issue that we have to address to ensure that our students and our children are able to meet the needs and find a place within the workforce so they can feel successful and have a good school experience. We also need to make sure we gather input from residents. So having focus groups, knocking on doors, making sure that we really understand what people want and we have an accurate picture of the town and what they think. Another piece is that similar to what other folks have said, we need to make sure once we do make the decision that we're able to communicate it efficiently with all town residents regardless of how they access their information. So that requires us thinking, forward thinking about the ways that we give information to our residents across the spectrum of age.
Thank you, Katrina. And finally, Lauren.
Great. So definitely, I think it's important that we get a VOTEC option back for our kids. College is so extremely expensive, and that's not always the path that kids want to take. And they really do need that opportunity. I don't think, at this point, it's like we have Pathways, which is not a VOTEC replacement. I know that gets confused. Pathways is fantastic programming in the high school, but I will say sending our kids, having to send them all the way to Aggies to get, an experience like that. Those kids don't get home till like 8, 9 o'clock if they do after school sports. We do definitely need an opportunity here for our kids. I was happy to see that Hanover or the South Shore Tech did approve the 900 student school, which is, they had different options. They did approve the 900 size, and that they're moving forward as of April 24th to the next phase into this project, which would be coming with the proposed design in late August, which I think is very exciting. The costs, it is a lot of money when you look at it up front, but we are going to be looking at it spreading through several towns, depending on who signs up, and that's when you're going to know what your final cost will be. And also, they're also changing from a fixed amount to a 4-year rolling average based on enrollment, which will also help us choose how many kids we're going to be sending, what that will cost. But yes, I think we do definitely need support with the VOTEC. I hope the town chooses to do that.
Terrific. Thank you, Lauren. And I apologize. I said you were going to be last, but you're not. It's Paige.
So this is the issue that got me involved really heavily in school committee. I have 2 children, my 2 eldest children, who are in the trades. This is not an option as far as we can't say, yes, some students should have AP access, and other students who need plumbing or electrical or carpentry, you don't get that, you're less important. This is important. It's not an option. We have to find a way to do this. And I want to work to make this happen. And yes, we have to look at budgets. Yes, we'll have to be really creative. Yes, we'll have to make sacrifices. We'll have to communicate with the community. But this is not optional. It's not optional at all. It's like saying special education is optional. It's not. Every single student deserves an education appropriate for their talents. We have to make this happen as a community, and I will fight for this. However I have to do that. So that's my position. It's a hill I'll die on. I've said that before. It's really important.
Terrific. Thank you, Paige. So on to the final question before we wrap up with closing statements. And this is the same question that was the final question for the Select Board. Should you be elected, how would you address an issue raised by a constituent you may not agree with or feel is important? And Paige, I'm sorry, but we'll start with you.
I can start. So one of the things I think is really wonderful about our community is that we have a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different talents, a lot of different backgrounds. And I'd like to see those come to play in how we develop our school and create more working relationships. The Pathways has an opportunity to do that. I have a veterinary practice that I manage, and my new truck that we're building, we're going to put a third seat in it so we can take a student along. We need to develop relationships like that. So how do we deal with people who don't agree with us? We talk. You know, my job as a school committee member is to do what's best for this town, to talk to its residents, to find out what's important to them, and to look long range at what our town is moving towards and how do we make it that vision. So I think the big thing is talking to one another politely, not divisively, not attacking one another. Ask one another, why are you running for school committee? Don't just take some other person's opinion about why you might be running for school committee. The students of this town matter to me. They've always mattered to me, and the people matter to me quite a bit, actually. Thank you.
Thank you, Paige. Lauren.
Thank you. So we're always not going to, everyone's not going to always see eye to eye, right? And this is why I will say it's important that our kids are getting social support in school so that when they get older, they can have like very great conversations together with differing opinions. It drives me crazy lately where it's like, I have one opinion, you have a different one, we can't be friends. That's not a thing. Like, we should be working together. I think it's really important to be listening to each other, like actively listening, not just go, oh yeah, okay. Like actively listening. And just because I might not think something's important when someone comes to me doesn't mean that it isn't important just because I think so. When I listen to the town, I have multiple people coming to me saying, this is a problem. We need more transparency and communication with the schools. I'm going to bring what I'm hearing because just because I think it isn't important doesn't mean it isn't. But I do think it is really important that we're all going to work together. I do think we need to put bias aside. Whoever ends up getting elected, I really want to see, and I hope I'm one of them, but I want to see us working together and really thinking through things, talking through things, not getting frustrated, not taking personal histories into conversations. We need to put the kids first. That is the most important part, is putting our kids first and making responsible choices for this town. And we can't do that if we're divided.
Thank you. Michael.
Could you repeat the question again?
I'll stop the clock. Should you be elected, how would you address an issue raised by a constituent that you may not agree with or feel is important?
First of all, there aren't any questions that are unimportant. We're dealing with people's kids. I feel that, you know, I may bring something up to Patrick, and you might think it's a minor concern, but it's important to me because it's my kid. It's my daughter or my son. So you have to, first of all, as a member of school committee, you have to start to realize that every issue is important to somebody, and you have to respect that. You have to see where they're coming from. You have to have an open mind. You have to listen to them, and you have to see, in some cases, where you can meet in the middle. You can't just have an argument with someone and just say, you're wrong, and explain why you're right. You have to find some common ground, meet in the middle, and you need to, again, be understanding. We're dealing with people's kids. This is their children's education. It's the most important thing to any parent. So, in my opinion, any school committee member has to recognize that. They have to have an open mind and just realize that not everyone thinks like you do. And remember to do the best thing for the kids every single time.
Thank you, Michael. Katrina.
Sure. So, engaging in conversations with folks who have differing opinions is not new to me. I was a director of special education and special education coordinator, and that was par for the course. There was lots of disagreements. I've sat in many a mediation session trying to get to an answer that works for everybody. And the first thing is that I need to listen. I need to listen actively and be able to hear what is being said instead of thinking what I'm going to say next. My opinion doesn't matter in cases like this because ultimately it's not about my opinion. It's about hearing a community member's input. And that's part of my job if elected. I would gather data. I would gather multiple perspectives to make sure I have an understanding of the entire community, or at least a section that best represents the community before making action. I would also thank them for their input and make sure that I follow up and find a way to address it. It might not be a big change, but that's ultimately not the point. What matters is that I follow up and I make sure that they feel heard and valued, because ultimately it's important to them, and that needs to be important to me too.
Thank you, Katrina. Sue.
It's a great question. I feel one thing that is lacking is in-person communication, and I've found that, when a lot of things get blown up on social media, so my first thing would be to meet with the person in person and have a sit-down conversation and listen and actually hear what the person's saying. So many misunderstandings happen when people don't have a face-to-face conversation and don't ask the important questions. A lot of fear can take place. And my job as a school committee member is to serve the community. My opinion doesn't matter. It's the opinion of the community that matters. And so if somebody comes to me with a concern, regardless of whether or not I agree with it, it has to be the top priority. So I always try to bring, people have come to me several times, and I always try to make sure that they feel that I take their opinion very seriously. So.
Very good. Thank you, Sue. And finally, Patrick.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to give you guys all just sort of an experience answer to this question, because it's simple. You deal with the issue that's raised by the constituent you may not agree with or feel that's important the same way that you deal with the constituent that you agree with and feel is important. There's no difference, right? It's not about debate. It's not about arguing. Mike, I think you said it best when you said, this is about taking a concern that somebody has from one of their children and escalating it and elevating it because they trusted you with their issue. Whether I think it's important or not is not relevant. Whether I agree with it or not is truly not relevant, right? It's part of being in government, and it's part of being a public servant. It's one of the things we've lost, right? That term, public servant. We're here to serve the public. So you do the same thing that you do when you agree with someone. You work on it, you get an answer, and then you return an honest and forthright answer to that individual.
Thank you, Patrick. So that concludes the questions. And now let's go to the closing statements. We'll go in reverse order from the opening statements. So we'll start with you, Lauren.
Great, thank you. So as I said, I'm a mom of two. I have a vested interest in the education of our kids. I'm very dedicated to our kids. I have a strong passion for helping kids grow, helping them learn. making sure that they're, have skills and building social skills together through my work through different, sports and the scouts and everything. I want to see the classroom be the center of our decision making. I think it's really important that that's where we're taking the perspective from. I'm ready to do the hard work. I've talked to members, both prior school committee members, and they say it's tough because you need to do the hard work. That's what I do on a daily basis at my current job. I'm fact-finding, I'm data analysis, I'm making appropriate decisions based on data, and I think that gives me a little bit of a unique experience as well as my experience with my son for special education. So please vote for Lauren Vitello, May 18th.
Thank you, Lauren. Paige.
Many of you know me as a veterinarian. I've gone into many of your homes and walked with you through some difficult times. You know that I look at each of you individually, consider you family. I've watched your kids grow. This community has given me a lot, and I consider this an opportunity to give back. I have a lot of respect for many of you. I shouldn't say many. I have a lot of respect for all of you. I meet with people at clientele, and I'm just in awe sometimes of the heart of this town, and I'm honored to be part of it. If you have a moment on May 18th, please consider voting for me. You won't regret it.
Thank you, Paige. Katrina.
Thank you. So, I'm Katrina Delaney. I, if elected, will be the only candidate with educator and administrator experience in Pembroke's history. I've taught over 460 students in public schools in some capacity as a special education teacher, general education teacher, special education teacher's aide, and that experience is one that is sorely lacking, as I have stated before, on our school committee. I have the experience with day-to-day operations of schools and managing school budgets when I was a school administrator, as well as managing budgets in my own small business. I know that my values are ones that I hold close to my chest. My core values are a part of everything that I do. And I want to make sure that I move with integrity, I move with inclusivity, and I work hard, and that's something that I promise to do if elected. So vote for me on May 18th, please.
Thank you, Katrina. Patrick.
First, thank you for holding this forum to educate the voters. This election's important. Every election's important. We hear it all the time. This one's really going to matter. And I think one of the things that we have to do is take our time and educate ourselves. Review the videos of the candidates. Make sure that we understand what's really being said. Read between the lines. Understand where the support is coming from. Understand what the true agendas are that are behind this table. I say that because I promised 20 years ago to defend kids and to defend the classroom. And I'm going to say, I know I'm going to be on the committee. I'm unopposed. I will continue to defend kids and defend the classroom. But that's a year, and then I'm done. 20 years is more than enough time. I'm begging you to inform yourself before you vote. I'm asking you to vote for kids. I'm asking you to vote for the classroom and educate yourself before you walk in to that voting booth.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Michael.
Yes, I'm Mike Quinn, and as a lot of you know, I was initially appointed January 2023 to be on the school committee. When I was going around and applying for that appointment, I went around and I talked to various select board members and school committee members, past and present. Every school committee member I talked to said, you need to check your politics at the door. You should not be bringing politics into your decision-making process. You should be doing what's right for the kids every single time. I took that seriously. I've taken that seriously. I have children in the school system, and I promise if I am reelected, I will continue to do the best, to make the best decisions for the kids every time. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And finally, Susan.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to address a red herring. On January 16th, when I went to discuss making classrooms more socially and politically neutral, it was said that this is not our brand, and that I was trying to bring extreme right-wing national politics to our town. Let's think about that. I was asking to remove politics, not add politics. That is the epitome of gaslighting. Saying that classroom neutrality is a far right-wing extremist view is ridiculous. I'm endorsed by many longtime bipartisan centrists who want the same thing, and if we as adults can't have a conversation without gaslighting and name-calling, how can we expect that of our kids? Kids are being silenced, and I submit to you that that is not our brand. Our focus needs to be on curriculum and academic excellence. That's what's best for our kids. There's a lot of work ahead, including prepping for a difficult budget season and deciding on the best programming for our students, and that needs to be our priority. And I have the experience and I'm ready to work. I ask for your vote on May 18th.
Thank you, Sue. So, there you have it. We've had 6 candidates for school committee, 3 candidates for select board. I want to thank all 9 of those folks and the people running for the library for stepping up and volunteering for this role. It's not easy. I've done it myself. And I know getting up tonight has been tough. So I thank everyone for running. I thank everyone for coming today. I also want to thank the library for all the work that they've done for supporting us. And the president of the Chamber of Commerce would like to say a few words. Peter Brown.
So thank you. I'm going to be very short, but so this was hard to put together. And as you can see, Frazier took the ball and ran with it, and I was very impressed and appreciative for it because in the past, it was hard to put this on to be open and honest and inclusive. And what happened tonight is exactly what we need for politics in this town. We presented it. We gave you the facts. It is recorded. It's going to be repeated. Take what you took today, all the information you had, and vote with your heart. As far as the Pembroke Chamber, we're a community-based chamber. As you can see by the volunteers that are here today that put this together, we need your help. The only way we can survive is by businesses like you or individuals like yourself to get involved. So reach out to me. You can reach out to Frazier. You have Mike Keeble, Jill Doyle, Emmy Flaherty, Diane Kuda, John Brown, Susan Bollinger. All of us are here for you. So whatever we can do to help you in this town for economic development, school, vocational information, just reach out to us and we'll get it to you. Thank you to local scene, and thank you.
Just one last piece of thanks. I don't believe anyone's thanked the audience for watching and for attending here. And you really have been fantastic. You've shown a lot of patience and fortitude, and I appreciate you all coming. Thank you very much.